In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the basic animation in Photoshop. So I have this image and I have two layers in it. As you can see, like the top left, there is a shape. I want to animate that one and then export the animation. First of all, you need to have access to the timeline panel on Photoshop in order to start your animation. So I go to the window and I click on the timeline. I open up the timeline, and to create the animation in Photoshop, I have two options to do it, like the frame animation or video timeline animation. So I'm going to show you how to animate your shapes through the video timeline at this point. So I choose the video timeline and I click on the button, and now I can see I have two clips in the timeline. So the number of clips is the same number with the layers that I have in the layer panel. So it means if I have two layers in the layer panel, then I'm gonna have two clips in the timeline. If I have four, then I'm gonna have four clips on the timeline. First of all, before I start the animation, I will give you a quick overview of the basic important aspect of the timeline. Then we will start animating the shape or object. So in the timeline, you will see here on the top part of the timeline on the left, there are some icons. The play button is the one that you need to know that when you make changes, you need to play your animation to see how the changes applies. Or you can press a space bar. Also, it plays the indicator, the time indicator for you, and you can play it, as you can see here. So the other one is this setting toggle that basically, if I hover over my mouse, that this is the set playback options. Okay, from here, if you click on it, you can change the resolution of your animation, and also if you check the loop playback, basically the animation that you create, it's gonna be on the loop, and when you export it, this loop will apply to your animation. Which I find this option very helpful, so I most of the time click on the loop playback option. And the other one is trim. That's scissor icon that basically trim your clips. Right now you see it is not activated because first I need to select the layer that I work in, and as you select the layer, now the trim option is activated. And in order to trim the clip, first I need to click on the clip, select it, and then click on the trim toggle. As you can see, it trims it in two different clips and makes it into basically split it into two different clips and have each of them in one separate layer. As you can see right now, I have the layer 3 in the layer panel and the layer 3 copy, and I have the same clips or layers in the timeline as well. So I'm going to show you later why trimming is helpful or important, but right now, for example, I trimmed it because I found it very long and I can get rid of the rest. Or here you can see there is a slider in the bottom of your timeline that you can move it to the right or left, and it basically zoom in or zoom out in your timeline, and you can see the whole clip. So I will delete because I don't want, for example, that long clip. Also, I will select the second clip and I will trim it as well, and I will get rid of the top one. So right now, also, if I zoom in the timeline, I have basically 22 frames, the duration of my clip. It shows it here in the timeline. Also, you can see these two icons that if I move it a little bit, you will see this is the input and out in point and out point of the clip. So basically these two sliders indicate the area that I am gonna export it eventually as the GIF or animation. So it is really important that when you want to export your animation, you should indicate the start point and end point. So like if it is like this, basically when I export my animation, it's gonna be from the frame 6 to frame 15, not the whole clip. So if I want to have the whole clip, I will move this slider to the all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Then the duration of the in point and out point of my clip for the export is gonna be same with the duration of my clip. So pay attention that you can select it and move this one for the duration of your export. Also, so when I click on this small arrow on the layers, it opens up the underneath options for me that I can see the position, opacity, and style. Okay, so I can keyframe those in the animation and make changes for the values. But first thing that you need to really pay attention, and this is really important, when you work in the timeline and when you work with the animation timeline, like the video, not the frame by frame, you need to convert your layers to a smart object in order to see the transform options. So what I need to do, for example, this is the layer 3, and if I turn it on and off, you will see in the document that this is the layer that I am targeting. Okay, so what I do, I right click on that layer in the layer panel and I select convert to a smart object. As I convert it, you will see the icon here in the layer panel is changing. It indicates that it is a smart object. And the difference right now, if I click on this small arrow on the left and open up the layer, instead of position, you will see transform, opacity, and style. So this is the option that you should get in order to make changes. You should see the transform. If you don't see the transform, it means your layer is not a smart object and you need to convert it to a smart object by right click on it and choose the smart object. So right now I can change the value for the transform. So what is transform in this case? It is position, scale, and rotation. I can change those three values underneath the transform options. And before we start animating, let me tell you the basic foundation of the animation. So in animation, you need to add keyframes in order to create the animation. And what is the keyframe? Basically, keyframes are the points, the exact time frame that you can add it to your shape, and you can change the value of whatever you want to target or modify. For example, in this case, I want to change the transform options. I need to add the keyframes, and you never can have animation without adding keyframes. And the other thing that you need to know, in order to create the animation, you need at least 2 keyframes. It means 2 different values. Otherwise, if you have one, it means you always have one value and nothing will change. So in order to add keyframe, I need to click on the stopwatch icon here in the timeline. So when for example, I want to change the transform, I click on the stopwatch icon and you will see a yellow diamond will add to the timeline. So it means the first keyframe is added. When you work with the animation and keyframe, you don't need to click on the stopwatch anymore. If you do that, it means you uncheck it and you remove the keyframe. So now you won't have any animation. So you click once, you add the keyframe, and you don't touch the stopwatch anymore. What you do, you're gonna like add different keyframes in different time frames. And when this option is activated, it automatically automatically add the keyframe for you when you change the time indicator and change the value. So by what I mean, it means right now I added the first keyframe, nothing changed. This is the basic value and information that I had in my image. So I move my time indicator to, for example, frame 10, and I want to change rotation. Okay, what I need to do now, I have the layer selected, and I'm gonna like change the value the basic way that I used to change the value in Photoshop. So for example, if I want to change the rotation, what I do, I go to the edit, transform, and rotate. So right now the rotate option is activated for me. I can rotate it by hovering over my mouse to the corners and I start rotating. Okay, so let's go back to the first mode that it was. I want to show you another thing. Sometimes when you rotate it, you need to pay attention. For example, you have a character and you have like you want to rotate the arm or hand, you need to pay attention where your anchor point for the rotation is located. If you want to, for example, move the hand from the shoulder, you need to make sure that the anchor is on the shoulder, not on the, for example, arm, or not on the wrist. You need to pay attention to the exact location of the anchor. So in order to know where your anchor is, or just like move it, there is an icon that you can check or uncheck it. If you check it, you will have access to the anchor. And if you see here in the center of the shape, there is a small anchor shape. I can move it and put it wherever I want in the image. Okay, basically, if I move it to somewhere else, all the rotation is going to be around the location or the position of the anchor. So I'm not gonna touch it here. I'm gonna like put it in the center because I want this circle to rotate around the center, but I want you to know that you can move it to wherever you want. So I will keep it here, and I am gonna rotate it to like this. And now I need to press enter or return. As I do it, you will see there is a keyframe added. And if I go back to the beginning and if I press spacebar or play button, you will see something is changing. When I add the animation or keyframes, I can move the keyframes. For example, I'm gonna like move it and move it to the frame number 22. As you can see, the speed of the animation is changing. Why? Because the gap between two keyframes is now more than before. So I want you to pay attention that when the gap between two keyframes is more, as it gets more, it means the speed of the animation becomes slower. And if the gap between two keyframes is smaller, it means the speed is faster. For example, if I move this keyframe and put it on the frame 2, see what will happen. It's just that it was so fast, even you can't realize it. And for the rest of your clip, you will see nothing changes. Why? Because from frame 2 to 22, there is no keyframe. and it's gonna keep the same value of the last keyframe. So I'm gonna change it to 22. The animation is slower, and for example, I want to not start it from the frame 0. I want to start my animation after frame 4. For example, I can move the first animation to frame 4. Then it means if I play it, the first 4 frames I won't have any animation, and from frame 4 to 22 I will have my animation. Let's see. This is what will happen. Also, you can you can stretch your clip and make it longer if you change your mind. And I make my timeline slider smaller, then I can see. And for example, I move it to here. As you can see now, the rotation is super slow. And also this option for the loop playback is on. It means when it goes to the end of the clip, it will start it again from the beginning. And this is what I get. Now, for example, I want to change the opacity. I want it to, like, I start my animation for the transform, for the rotation from frame 10. And what I do, I will add a stopwatch to activate the keyframe for opacity. Now, the opacity value, I go to the layer and make the opacity 0. As you will see here, I can't see the shape anymore because I changed the opacity value to 0. And now I move my cursor to frame 10, and I change, even I make it like, for example, frame 8, and I change the opacity to 100. And you will see another keyframe added. So what will happen from frame 0 to 8, smoothly my shape will appears, and it remains still on for 2 frames, which is frame 10 here, and then I'll start rotating. As you can see, this is what will happen. So this is the basic aspect of the animation. Okay, so let me show you how you can export your animation. What I will do, for example, imagine I created this shape, but I want to save it with transparency, because later I want to add it to another layer and I don't want any background. In this case, you need to turn off the layers that you don't want before you export it from the layer panel. So I turned off the background layer. Right now I only have the top layer, and I go to the file, export. You can export it as video or as a GIF. Okay, it's up to you. I mean, for the assignment, I will give you the option to export it as a video or as a GIF. But these are 2 different formats. Okay, GIF is an image, basically a sequence image. So if you want to save it as a GIF, you go to the export, save for web. GIF like is a format that you can use it for a web, and it is considered an image. It is smaller size. I think it is good for the sake of what we need. So right now I'm gonna, like, from the preset, I won't choose the, I won't touch the preset, but later you can go through these different options and see what would be different preset. And I'm gonna, like, choose the GIF here. If it is not, make sure that, like, if you want to export it as a GIF, you need to choose the GIF. And here the transparency option should be definitely checked if you want to keep the transparent background. And don't worry about other options. I go and choose the save. and I, for example, save it on the desktop, and I put it Sufi Alpha. I save it wherever you want to locate it, just like locate it and save it. Oh, the other thing, yeah. You need to make sure before you export it, you need to indicate the in point and out point of your GIF or animation, which it is right. I selected, I already did it, but since I didn't talk about it, I want you to pay attention that you need to indicate the duration as well. So right now, if I right click on the GIF, and open it, for example, with Google Chrome, you will see this is the exact position that it was in my document, but with the transparent background, OFO background. So for example, let's go back, go to the Photoshop, and I will turn on the background, and I want to have like, I want to export everything together. Okay, what I do, I'm going to show you the video this time, then you will see different formats of exporting. Now I go to the file, export, render video, and I can choose the format. You can choose H.264, which is MP4, or QuickTime. I choose the MP4, and you can choose the frame rate. It means like the number of frame that your animation will be completed in each second. Okay, so you can choose the frame. It is basically frame per second. FPS stands for frame per second. Right now it means every 1 second of the animation it's gonna be 30 frame. Okay, you can change it if you, at some point it is important for you the frame rate of your animation. So I leave it as it is, and I select the folder, I put it on the desktop, and I put the name. I think rest of it is fine. I can render the animation again based on the in point and out point. And this time it's gonna render the whole document for me. And here, if I play, you will see the animation is playing.